Today was a special day. Our son Henry was supposed to come over for lunch with his girlfriend. That's the thing about ordinary blessings. You notice them right before the world tilts sideways. My wife Margaret had been slow roasting it since 2 o'clock, garlic tucked under the skin, lemon inside the cavity, rosemary from our back deck. The chicken was perfect. The whole house on Dunbar Street smelled like a Sunday that had nothing wrong with it. I was carrying wine up from the basement when I heard her laugh for the first time. Not words, just the shape of it. It floated down through the kitchen ceiling and something inside me. A skill I'd honed over 30 years in interrogation rooms while working as a financial crimes investigator. I retired 2 years ago. Went very, very quiet. The laugh was perfect. That was the problem. Her name was Sasha Chevalier, and she was already performing when I reached the top of the stairs. One shoulder against the doorframe, sparkling water held with practiced elegance. Dark hair loose in exactly the right way. When she turned and smiled at me, immediately, without hesitation. The smile was suspiciously natural. One might even say it looked forced. That's what made her dangerous. Mr. Willis. She extended her hand. Henry talks about you constantly. I shook it, said something pleasant, looked past her shoulder. Henry stood at the kitchen island, and there, behind his warm smile, behind that steady face I'd known for 29 years, was something that had been keeping him awake. I said nothing. I opened the wine. Dinner was candlelight and dahlias and Margaret's good tablecloth. Sasha was remarkable company, drawing Margaret out about her ceramics, asking me thoughtful questions, refilling water glasses before anyone noticed they were low. Then Margaret asked the question that changed everything. And what do you do, Sasha? I'm a private wealth facilitator. She turned the glass slowly in her fingers. I help clients access investment structures unavailable through traditional banks, real estate, private lending pools, energy infrastructure partnerships. A smile, smaller, conspiratorial. There's an entire world of returns that ordinary people never even know exists. I set down my fork. What kind of regulatory oversight do these structures carry? She didn't blink. Less regulatory friction means faster capital movement. That's where the real returns come from. Less regulatory friction. Across the table, Margaret went very still. After 38 years of living with me, she knows the silence that follows when I'm filing something away. I smiled and poured more wine. It happened during dessert. 3 distinct presses, deliberate, carefully spaced. The outside edge of Henry's shoe against mine beneath the table. 1, 2, 3. Our signal. Invented 20 years ago for a 9-year-old boy trapped at a party, pressed into service tonight by a grown man at his own dinner table. I need help. Don't make it obvious. We hadn't used it in 11 years. He used it tonight. Right after she said less regulatory friction. I kept smiling. I kept pouring wine. And inside every quiet, well-trained nerve in my body was already asking the same question. How much has she already taken from him? Margaret went to bed at 11. She set a fresh cup of tea beside me without a word. 38 years of knowing when I need silence, and disappeared upstairs. I put on my reading glasses and opened the Lumiere Investissement subscription agreement. 21 pages, navy and gold letterhead. Clean, confident fonts chosen to whisper Geneva and old money simultaneously. The first 6 pages were warm and accessible. The back half, where the important things always hide, was dense, technical, and masterfully empty. I went through it line by line. No auditor, not a small firm, not an obscure one, none. A fund claiming 9 years of 20 to 23% annual returns with zero external verification isn't a fund that survived scrutiny. It's a fund that never allowed scrutiny to exist. The investor protections section referenced something called the Lumiere Capital Investor Assurance Program, described in a separate document that was neither attached nor linked. The registered address, Suite 1400, 999 West Hastings Street. I knew that address. I'd known it for 20 years. One of Vancouver's most used mail forwarding services. $45 a month buys you a suite number, a downtown postal code, and the quiet implication of an entire floor of a glass tower. No office, no firm. A mailbox with ambitions. I called Paul Trevithick at 12:41 a.m. Forensic accountant, 22 years with the Crown Attorney's office, constitutionally incapable of telling you something was fine when it wasn't. "You're up late," he texted back. "Must be bad." 8 a.m. Then Diana O.C. Mensah, senior investigator, BC Securities Commission, the sharpest instincts for financial predator psychology I'd ever encountered. Her reply came at 6:17 a.m. "Already know why you're texting. Call me at 8:30 a.m. I have something to tell you first." I read that message standing in the gray October kitchen and felt the cold certainty of it settle into my chest. She already knew the name. Paul called at 8 sharp. I read him sections of the subscription agreement. He interrupted me twice. When I finished, the silence lasted long enough that I checked the call hadn't dropped. "Richard." His voice was careful. "The physical assets securing the credit facilities. There's no schedule. No description, no collateral listing, no appraisal reference. A real private credit fund would itemize everything." A pause. "This is a frame without a painting. You could hang anything in it, or nothing." "I know. Who's the victim?" A beat of silence. "My son." He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice had changed. "How much?" $210,000. Diana called at 8:29 a.m. "Before you say anything," she said, "I'm going to tell you something." She already had Sasha Chevalier's name on a file. 6 weeks, 3 provinces, 3 fraudulent vehicles. A previous victim, Jimmy Baldwin, 70 years old, recently widowed, too ashamed to press charges, who'd lost $97,000 to her first dry run. Total documented losses across 7 confirmed victims, $790,000. "How close is she to the ask?" Diana asked. "Subscription agreement already sent. Month-end deadline." "How much is at risk?" "My son's retirement savings." I stopped. $210,000. The silence that followed was the kind that occurs between two people who have spent careers sitting with families who lost everything and are now sitting with the possibility of it happening to one of their own. "Richard," Diana said quietly, "I need Henry to go back in." I drove to his apartment that afternoon, and I sat across from my son, this man I had watched grow from a boy who needed a secret signal to escape a party. And I asked him to walk back into the mouth of it. He looked at me with those steady, sleepless eyes, and he said yes. Patience is the most underrated weapon in any investigation. The anxious move too quickly, the overconfident skip steps. I had built my entire career on the discipline of holding still when everything in you screams to act. I told myself this Monday morning. I told myself this Monday afternoon when Henry called to say Stasha had texted him 3 times since Sunday. Cheerful, warm, a photograph of a waterfront sunset, a restaurant recommendation in Yellowtown. Each message a careful maintenance of the illusion. Each message now evidence. Diana called at 8 Monday evening. "We have a problem." One of the Alberta victims, Carolyn Favreau, 58, a nurse who'd lost $112,000, had posted Sasha's full name in a private fraud victims group on Facebook. 412 members, technically private, completely unpredictable. If that name reaches her network, Diana said, she's gone in 48 hours. These operators maintain exit strategies like other people maintain car insurance. Pre-packed bag, new identity template, different city. My stomach tightened. How long do we have? I don't know, which means Henry needs to move the meeting to tomorrow morning. I called Henry immediately. "She already texted me," he said before I could speak. His voice was controlled, but only just 20 minutes ago. "She wants me to come to her hotel tonight. She said she has the documents ready." A pause. She used the word excited. The timeline had accelerated on her end. Something had shifted. "Henry, listen carefully. Tell her tonight doesn't work. Suggest tomorrow morning, somewhere public. Your choice, somewhere familiar. Keep it warm. Give her no reason to think anything has changed." Silence. "She'll want somewhere private." Tell her you think better in coffee shops. Keep it light. I paused. Can you do that? The briefest hesitation. Yes, he said, I can do that. He called back at 9:15. Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, cafe on Robson and Butte. Did she push back? No. Something in his voice shifted, quieter, hollowed out. She said she'd been thinking about me all weekend. There was nothing useful I could say to that, so I didn't try. I arrived at his apartment at 7:50 Tuesday morning. He was already dressed, coffee ready, black for me, the way he'd been making it since he was 12, and decided to always remember small things about people he loved. He got that from Margaret. We sat at his kitchen table and I walked him through it one final time. Phone in his front shirt pocket, recording app open, screen down. Let her talk. Never rush her. When she pauses, let the silence sit. People performing under pressure cannot bear silence. They fill it. Be a man who's almost ready to say yes. He nodded through all of it, hands around his mug, eyes steady. How are you feeling? I asked. He looked out the window at the gray Vancouver morning. Honestly, a long breath. I keep thinking about Jimmy Baldwin, 70 years old, $97,000, too ashamed to tell a single person. He looked back at me. I keep thinking that was going to be me. My chest tightened in a way I hadn't expected. But it wasn't, I said quietly. No, he stood, picked up his jacket. It wasn't. I walked him to the corner of Robson and Butte. We stopped on the wet sidewalk. Morning commuters flowing around us, the smell of espresso and rain, and he looked at me one last time. No words, just a father and his son standing still while the city moved. He pushed open the cafe door and walked inside. I gave it 3 minutes. Then I followed. I found a table at the far end, facing the wall, ordered a flat white I would never touch. And I sat there, breathing, being patient, while my son walked alone into the hardest thing I had ever asked of anyone. The door opened behind me at 10:03. I didn't turn around. I heard Henry's voice, easy, warm, completely controlled. Then hers, chairs arranging, coats settled, the small choreography of two people who know each other well enough to move comfortably in a shared space. Then her laugh, still perfect, still practiced, still devastating. I stared at the wall and breathed. Henry told me everything afterward, sitting on his couch at 4 o'clock with his forearms on his knees and his voice very quiet. She touched his arm when she sat down, not flirtatiously, affectionately, the touch of someone who has earned small physical familiarity and knows it. She asked about his weekend, listened fully, then told him a small story about calling her mother Sunday night. Something funny her mother had said, placing a warm, ordinary life in the room beside her. He recognized it only now for what it was, evidence of a person who does not exist. Then, unhurried, she opened the Manila folder. 20 to 24% annual returns, a Geneva-based advisory collective, private credit facilities secured by diversified physical asset portfolios. An intake window closing on the 31st. Not pressure, she was careful to say, never pressure, but the next cycle wouldn't open until February. Then she leaned forward and lowered her voice just enough to create intimacy. Henry, I want to be honest with you. He waited. I don't bring this to everyone. Bringing you in, it matters to me personally. A pause, precisely waited. Whatever you decide, it doesn't change this. This, 8 weeks of Sundays, the photograph on her phone, everything that had felt real because parts of it were. Henry's hands were completely still on the table. He asked her to walk him through the wire transfer process again. Asked her to confirm the return projection on $210,000. Asked her to repeat the deadline. She answered everything, named every number, gave him all of it. I think I'm ready, he said. She smiled, the full smile, the real one, and reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. I'm so glad, she said. Henry pressed stop with his thumb. He texted me at 11:47. Done, I have it all. Calling in 12:30. His voice on the phone was steady but thin, the sound of adrenaline leaving slowly while something exhausted moved in behind it. She held my hand when she said goodbye, he said. She told me she'd been so happy since we met. He stopped. She had a photo of us from Whistler. As her wallpaper, Dad, her wallpaper. I closed my eyes. There was nothing I could say that would make that land differently. So I didn't try. Go home, I said gently. Send Diana the file, then rest. Diana called me that evening at 7. I've listened 3 times, she said. It's enough. We're moving Wednesday morning, before 8. Tell Henry to be out of the apartment. I exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. He'll want to know when it's done. He'll know, Diana said quietly. Then, Richard, in 22 years, I have never watched a victim walk back involuntarily and hold himself together like that. She paused. You raised someone remarkable. I looked at Margaret across the kitchen. She was watching me, both hands around her cup, not breathing quite right. I know, I said. That night, Henry called at 2 in the morning. He didn't say much. Just asked me to stay on the line. So I did. We didn't speak. Just father and son together in the dark, waiting for Wednesday. Henry called at 7:58 Wednesday morning. They're here, Dad. He was standing in the hallway outside his own apartment. In his socks, he'd stepped out the moment the knock came, just as Diana had instructed, and forgotten his shoes entirely. Through the closed door, he could hear it all. Sharp, authoritative voices identifying themselves. Sasha's voice rising in sudden alarm. What is this? What's happening? The sound of drawers being opened, a laptop being bagged, the clipped efficiency of people executing a warrant that had taken weeks to build and 30 seconds to serve. Then silence. Then the sound of handcuffs. They're taking her out now, Henry whispered. Dad, she's looking right at me. My chest tightened. Don't look away, I said quietly. You have nothing to be ashamed of. She does. A long pause. Okay, he said. Okay, she's gone. He exhaled, long, ragged, the breath of a man setting down something extraordinarily heavy. It's over? It's over, I said. Margaret stood at the kitchen counter, both hands around her coffee cup, watching my face read the situation through the phone. Done, she said. Done. She turned away, stood very still for a moment. When she turned back, her eyes were bright. I'm making French toast, she said. It's 8 in the morning. I know exactly what time it is. 3 weeks later, Diana called with the final numbers. 8 victims, 3 provinces, 3 fraudulent funds, total losses, $790,000. Henry was the only one who hadn't lost a single dollar. He came for Sunday dinner that November, just the 3 of us. Margaret's roast chicken, the good tablecloth, the same table where it had all begun. He was quiet through most of it, not the anxious quiet of before, but something settled, finished. Afterward, hands around his coffee mug, he looked at me across the kitchen table. I keep asking myself how I didn't see it earlier. You did see it, I said. That's why you used the signal. He thought about that for a long moment. She told me she loved me. I held his gaze and didn't look away. She was very good at what she did, I said quietly. But Henry, the moment your gut said something is wrong, you listened. You reached out, with a signal we invented for a 9-year-old boy at a party. I leaned forward. That instinct, that is what saved everything. His jaw worked once. Then he nodded. Slow, certain, whole. We didn't lose a dollar. We almost lost everything. And the difference, in the end, was a son pressing his foot against his father's 3 times under a white tablecloth. If your gut is telling you something, listen. It never lies. Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.